let's see, record, and then share screen one.
Yep, that'll do.
Yeah, now it's
Oh
showing.
man, that sucks. Well, I'm gonna have to kind of go back a little bit then. Let's start.
Now it's recording.
It's recording now, right? That's why I was
Yes,
so
yes.
concerned in there. Yeah. So, well, because I'm going to have to, I normally put this stuff up later, so I'm going to have to actually repeat myself a few words here. So basically what I was saying is that, you know, I did this render yesterday. And then basically like I'm trying to do a little, you know, create a little bit more of a lighting environment that I can evaluate the forms a little bit better. And I was just saying, and thank God you guys caught that I was not recording, so I'm gonna have to repeat myself. Yeah, basically like I'm trying to go for a skin color that is just like kind of like an average for this one. And you know, I'm gonna go more towards like lighter tones, some more saturated tones, and also reds and everything. But at the same time, this is just like a placehold, you know. I'm gonna have to take a look and see if this light environment here, for example, if I don't have a lot of contamination from, you know, different colors from the HDRI I have, I'm basically using a HDRI as a filler in here. So let's go back to the settings I have. So I have a light in here, which is, so this basically like is an object. So I created a polygon plane to create that object in there. And then I went to Arnold and I assigned like a mesh light to it. And I did that so I can actually create caustics. So I'm gonna go through the caustics process again, which is, so to create a caustics effect, we have to make sure that the lights are visible. It can be an HDRI or another type of light, as long as you have a visible in here, which the area light doesn't have apparently. So I use this one, so I click on visible, and then the other two steps to create a caustics effect for the eyes, I have to make sure that the eyes have opaque in here. If you don't want caustics, basically like if you want just a transparent shadow, you just like turn it off. But in this case, I need it. And then the last part is in the shader itself. If you go down all the way here under advanced in your shader of the eyes that we're going to be talking next week, then you're going to have to turn on caustics. And those are basically the 3 steps for it. And then obviously you're going to need to have more samples, right? So for example, here, if I have my transmission at 3, I'm probably going to have to crank transmission here in specular a little bit higher than that to be able to produce enough samples. Otherwise, it's going to get very scattery and noisy, you know. So and then so basically, like what I did was actually to copy the color settings from the current color in here, just to have an idea. So basically, like I clicked the model and I went to the subsurface color, which is basically a plain color. There's nothing in there. And I copied those values in here, 141, 106, and 66. And I plugged them all into here, the color. And I got this color here it looks a little bit too orange, too yellow at this point, you know. So it might be that my scene is not well calibrated, but I'm gonna keep this one in here just in case. And today we're gonna be doing a little bit more sculpting. We're gonna try to tackle some more of the lips stuff that we didn't talk too much about, and start incorporating a little bit more forms around the eyes as well. By this time, I'm a little bit faster than this, you know. In this class, I don't know, man. I'm just like, there's a lot going on with having to work from home and then helping to take care of the kids, plus all the other stuff that's stressing us out. So I'm going slower. But the advantage of that is that you guys, if I have plenty of time to catch up and even pass what I'm doing. So we're going to be doing some more sculpting today, and then talk a little bit more about the shader network that I tweaked. So at this point here, I can share the parameters I have. It's still a little scattery, you can see, a little bit too scattery in there. We can counter that with textures and everything, but at this point, I can actually go a little bit lower than what I have at this point. So I have 130, and remember yesterday I was working with 110. So I might keep around like maybe 120, like that, so kind of like right in the middle. And then let's just do like a view, select, and store snapshot. Let's just select just this area. Yes?
Don't you have like a base shader for skin at this point, like one you will reuse?
Yeah.
You look over maybe there is a reason for that.
No, I actually have like a, it's like I did all those different characters, and each one of them I use like a ballpark. It's like sometimes depending of the type of the skin, like I said before, for example, like if you have like a lot of sunburn, for example, right? The subsurface scatter is not going to behave the same way. So you have like someone with it's like someone who is like under the sun a lot. For example, like the Native American guy, the African guy, and now this lady. So it's almost like if you use like a single color or a single radius for everything, it's almost like it doesn't accommodate everything. So I try to get like an average color or radius. Actually, sorry, the scale. And then in this case here, because she has a little bit more that tone and a little bit more sunburn, I think I'm gonna have to go a little lower. Yes, that's why yesterday I was at 110, and then this one here was at 130 at first, because I was copying the settings from one of my previous models, which is basically what you're saying. I copied from the Dick Smith model, which was more scattery like this. But in her case, I think I'm gonna keep around like 120. But it's always a ballpark. It's like it's between 110 to 145 or 150 even. It's like, but always in that ballpark. I definitely gonna be changing. It's like from character to character all the time, and trying to improve in the process too. It's like sometimes you build it and you compare it to some pictures like references, and you see like, oh, maybe it's going a little bit too far. But yeah, just like my approach is, it's very visual. It's like much less scientific, let's put it this way.
Yeah, that's why I was asking, because I was reading the Arnold documentation.
Yeah.
And they were talking about it like an exact science, and I see you move things around, because I did move things because it was looking like shit on my model as well. I was like, that can't be right.
Yeah.
I don't understand what I'm doing wrong. And since the scale is such an important part, I was like, oh, maybe it's because the scale of the model, and I changed right. I just ended up, yeah, like you, tweaking stuff, but I was just
yeah. I mean, like when you talk in the manual, right? When you talk about the radius, for example, they have an exact value in there that's like for the skin, and there's another thing they use, kind of like a velvet kind of, this shin thing here that is like they tell people like to use the shin.
They also mentioned the layer subsurface, which I don't have access in Maya. That you know what I mean?
The layer SSS.
Yeah, in the documentation, when I looked for the SSS search, I ended up with like 3 layer with 3 like colors. I'm like, where is that?
Yeah. That's what I was saying. I was like, when they talk about layers, they're talking about the 0 to 1 here, and they're actually kind of considering those layers, those numbers in here. You know what I mean? So when I go here, it's basically like, so if let's go to Arnold 5 manual. So let's see it like standard surface. Let's see if this one goes straight there. This one. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they mentioned the exact number in there. So if you scroll down all the way to subsurface, so they have those nice examples in there. Then you're talking about the importance of having things not flipped. You have the normals have to point the correct direction. And then around here, they talk about when rendering skin, you should use a value like, so they're not saying exact, right? They're a value like this one. So 1, 0.35, and 0.2, indicating that the red should scatter deepest and green and blue less. So basically like, that's, I think, what you're talking about. This would replace the 3-layer workflow, deep, mid, and shallow layers, for a skin where you would make the deep layer red to indicate that the deep should scatter with a larger radius. Setting scatter radius to R to a larger value would correspond to that. So basically, like, they're using the colors themselves to simulate the, the subdermal, epidermal, it's like all the 3 layers of the skin, basically, by using color. So that's their way to do
that's
it.
my bad. Then I should have probably read something that was slightly older.
Yeah. Yeah, and they kind of say like, you should use a value like this, but I mean, like I said, I play around even with the color. Sometimes like depending on the tone of the skin. I'd rather have something that's a little bit less orange and a little bit, more towards magenta and vice versa, depending on the type of character. And then the values, I mean, like I play with that as well. So for example, here you're talking about, let's see, this is the scale, right? Let's see, is that the radius or the scale? Yeah, the scale, very scale dependent. So basically like this is 0, 0.5, and 1, which is the default in here. But I don't know exactly what's the size of the character you're talking about, because at 1, it looks very, very scattery. So I'm not sure. So radius, oh, the radius is here actually. The default is at 1. Yeah, basically like 0.25 is too strong for his skin. So I use about like, yeah, 110 and 150, something like that. But
yeah,
yeah,
when I was talking about the scale model, is like the actual wall space of the model, since it affects, since those values are based on world space. If
yes,
you scale the model, it's changed quite a bit.
Yeah, and the skin shader here I changed a bit too. I mean, like from yesterday, I mean, like I can update you guys on this one. For example, this one I brought at first. I brought the skin from the Dick Smith mod I had, the old model, and I just updated a little bit here. So basically, like base is you can ignore because I'm just using subsurface. So I'm gonna turn it off. So I'm using 0.1 only for this for the specular at this point. But bear in mind that all those values are gonna be playing around with them until I find something that lands in that. It's the look dev part of things, right? Like you can give like some artists, like a look dev artist, a new model, and they can try to make it work with like previous shader, but it always needs tweak. It's like different characters, different types of skin, different, it's like a level of sweat or whatever it is. But those are basically like ballpark values as well. So 0.1, and then for the color, I'm using that specular map that we exported yesterday, but I did a little tweaking here. Instead of like using that pure color under the color balance, no, actually this one here, I just preserved the same. I'm just using a little bit of an offset. So this is basically like the specular with some offset. So if it's something that's completely black before, so you have a large contrast, I actually reduce the contrast by introducing some of the color offset in here. So basically like it has it's a little bit more even now. You get a little bit more speck all over instead of like very isolated. But it's a matter of like doing the renders and really playing with this one here. I might have to go slightly lower, but definitely using some offset. So that's what I'm doing for the specular. And then roughness at 0.22 for the spec. This is the main spec, and 155 for the index of refraction. Then transmission is 0, so complete subsurface scattering with that those values I was talking about before. So 0 to 1. So I'm getting something like this. So this is basically like the color itself, the color of the model. That would basically be replaced by the albedo color. So those are the amounts I'm using here. So it's 32, 052, 0532, and then 050, 553. And then 0 to 1, those are the values here if you guys want to copy. But obviously it's going to be dependent on your own model. And so scale, I went from 110 yesterday. I kind of started with the 130 here, and I'm back to 120. I think it's going to be a little bit nicer for the eyelids. But bear in mind that sometimes the eyelids, all they're missing is a little bit more volume as well. So I'm going to be playing with this. Maybe I can introduce a little bit more volume, and that way it's going to be scattering a little bit less in relation to what it is right now. Maybe it's a little bit too thin. And for the radius, I'm pretty close to those values that they mentioned in the manual. So like instead of 1, it's 980. Instead of like 035, 0333, and then 200. So basically like a very, very close. You can even use those ones that they suggest in the manual. And then for the coat, I'm basically just plugging the same map I'm using for the specular. Oh, check this out, the specular in here. I'm actually plugging the color for the spec, and then plugging the weight for the coat. I wonder why. I think the coat, what happens is because it's supposed to be kind of like a clear coat. It's like if you're gonna do like, for example, like a car paint or something like that, you can use like a clear coat with this pass. And this one is very sensitive to color. So for example, if you plug like a map in here, you're definitely going to get some clear coat that looks black, for example. We're going to get like some weirdness in there. So basically, it's going to colorize the spec in a much bigger way than if you plug in the way. I think that's why I'm using this way. I believe the specular doesn't react the same way, but the coat definitely catches a lot of that color, you know. So I think that's why I plugged in there. This is from the old shader. I'm gonna have to investigate, but I'm almost completely sure that's the thing, because I tried to do some tests like plugging a black and white map into the color of the coat, and then it definitely gets like you know, it's like very weird results, kind of like you get like black specular. You know, it's like it's weird, but yeah, I think that's what I'm doing there. For the color, it's not like full on. Let's see if it's full on white. Yeah, it's full on white. So white, and then roughness 0.380 in comparison to the specular itself. That's 220. So this one goes a little bit more broad, and the index of refraction is the same, 0.155. For the shin, I have something plugged in here, but I might use or not. This one, basically what this does is to simulate some kind of like velvet kind of look. So if you're like building some clothes and you want to add that kind of like a little velvety microfiber kind of feeling, micro fuss, basically like you use the shin. But in our case, we're going to be using actual peach fuzz, a lot of them actually. And that should give us the effect without having to rely on the shin. But we might use a tiny little bit of it, or maybe not, just like we're going to go by feeling. And then the last thing is in geometry, I have my AI cell noise. So what I did was kind of like I made a combo. I bought this shader from a previous model, and then I used a lot of what I had in there, but I changed the scale, and then I incorporated the cell noise into it, which is the little micro displacement or micro bump that we included yesterday with the same amount, same values, and with the same map plugged to it for the bump depth. So that's just like a quick update on the shader at what I have so far. You know, obviously things gonna keep changing. I always do a lot of tests, and you're never gonna see like the same shader network at all in any of my models, because I'm not ever satisfied with anything. So I keep like trying different things, you know, and sometimes it gets better, sometimes it gets worse. So I have to dial back. But yeah, that's basically what I have for now. And then, but what I like about this shader, this lighting setup in here, is that now I can, that I have like a little bit more of a top light in here. It's easier for me to see the depth of those wrinkles and everything, you know. If I'm comparing to this lady here, I want to make sure I'm getting like the same amount of, you know, depth for everything. So I can tell that those guys can go way deeper, right? And then I can tell that her lips can go much thinner than what I have in there. But in terms of depth for those corners in here, they're kind of like in a ballpark, need some tweaking and everything. But, and then those guys here, they're starting to work. Maybe I need just a little bit more spec in there would help to bring them up, right? Like bring the forms up. It's impossible to actually make the forms show without having enough specular in certain areas, you know. As long as you start adding the specular in certain areas, then things really pop. And in her case, she's definitely gonna have plenty of spec around this area, and the lips as well. But yeah, so I'm gonna be tweaking some of the lips now, and then gonna go back and sculpt some more around the eyes, and yeah, keep going with the model to try to get stuff done, because for in preparation for next week. So basically what I'm gonna be doing today is just like incorporating more and more forms, and then trying to do more during the weekend as well. So I'm actually in a good spot when it comes Monday for us to paint the albedo, just the color map that's going to be combined with these other maps. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about those other maps as well and how they're behaving and all that stuff. I already gave like a good introduction yesterday, but you can go a little deeper than that. So let's just go to my ZBrush and do some more sculpting here. Let's see what we can talk about a little bit more in depth here. I'm still not satisfied at all with the lack of direction, and also the lack of you know, breakups in the skin. It's still very, very all even, but I definitely gonna have to concentrate a little bit more on the eyes, and I'm gonna try to do faster than I was doing yesterday. So let me just get my references and try to crank maximum amount of things I can today. Because I'm falling behind with my model, and I don't like that because I really need to be kind of ready to show the next step for you guys. So if I'm falling behind, that doesn't work for me. So let's go back here.
Sorry, Chris.
Yes.
Sorry, I was just wondering. So is your model like finished, like, and it's not going to change anymore, the base?
No, I'm gonna keep changing it. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I mean,
so,
like
if you change it, sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah. At this point, I'm just like really concentrated, like really focusing on the adding some more of those details. You know, it's like a little bit more of the secondary and those wrinkles. So in terms of like big changes in the face, I'm not gonna have like huge changes, but from time to time, for example, I might need to actually, you know, it's like incorporate some changes, like for example, like the thickness of the nose and stuff. If I do like with like very carefully, I can get away with it. And then in terms of the primary forms, like face and the body, definitely going to be changing all over the place. You know, if you remember, like I had this whole like lump in there before, and I already removed it. So I'm going to keep like playing with it. You know, obviously the face, I like the most of the proportions, but they're definitely like stuff that I'm going to be changing in the next days for sure.
Right. And so, sorry, if you were to change anything, do you have to re-detail in HD again?
No, not at all.
No?
Yeah,
Okay.
this like what I'm trying to do is always like go back to the lowest resolution of the HD and then change around here. And sometimes even getting out of HD. For example, let's get out of here. And then here, I can just go to my lowest, for example, and I can play with those bigger forms, you know. And basically, but that's what I'm doing constantly, just like going, incorporating, you know, it's like doing more tweaks here and there, doing more, you know, it's like using different resolutions and trying to incorporate stuff around here. And then when I go back to HD, all this stuff is basically like adapted to it. So I'm just actually going to build, since I'm here, some more of her little bags in here. I've noticed that she has. I had them much more pronounced before, and now they kind of went away. But yeah, like at this point here, I'm just tweaking like basically like secondary forms and primary forms. And I'm gonna keep doing this forever, you know, all the way to the end, because yeah, it's awesome. You can actually keep working either in HD or outside of HD, but you can always go back to those primary and secondary forms, which is really cool. Something that we don't have access with traditional art, for example. In this case here, we definitely can keep tweaking primary and secondary forms all the way to the end without losing anything. Obviously, if you're gonna do like large changes, like for example, like from here, you decide to do something like, you know, really change the model completely, then all of a sudden, like all the detail we put in there, then it's gonna stretch, right? So we're gonna get lots of stretching here. But at the same time, if you try to do the changes as if you're doing like blend shapes, for example, for production, right? Like normally if you're doing blend shapes, you're trying to be careful about the way that you're moving stuff around. So for example, like the eyelids, you're gonna have to move in a certain way that carries, like it has a nice fall off, goes all the way down instead of being completely localized, right? Like if you do something like this, you're not gonna close the eye like this, right? You're gonna try to get actually a nice fall off and try to bring like stuff a little bit more together. And then if you always work this way, if your model is good enough and likeness is good enough, then you can definitely get away with a lot of stuff, you know. So I wouldn't be too concerned about the detail at this point. Let's just bring this one in. I think this is another one that's tricky as well to get like the right positioning for those bags, because you have to make sure that it makes sense with the context of the eyeballs. You have the eyeballs in there, you have the orbital in here, and you have to make sure, for example, it's very common to see, for example, this eye bag like I had like out of place, you know. It's like I'm exaggerating obviously, but that would not make that much sense unless you're doing a creature, right? So it has to be kind of like you know, it has to make sense in the context of the eyeballs themselves. So that's why I'm kind of like trying to tweak them to make a little bit more sense. Let me carve here a little bit more as well. It's a tricky one because her eyes, they're puffy in a way, right? But at the same time, she still has this you know, this lining here for the lower lids. And then it's almost like I'm tempted to actually blend everything, you know, it's like you create just a bag like that. But yeah, this actually adds a little bit more of a organic feel to it. And it's part of the model, of the reference as well. So I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna just flatten the side here a little bit as well. And this area here, I can actually build some people get a lot of fat accumulated around here. Just gonna build a little bit of fat in there. And then what I notice is that right close to the caruncula, this is a little bit more open. And the caruncula we're going to be talking about next week as well. We're going to be adding I normally use a secondary geometry. So at this point, you see like I'm not too concerned here because this is going to be covered by a secondary geometry. But one thing I can do here is actually bring one little piece down in here, because that's basically what happens. You know, it's like, especially with her in here, she has this little edge going down. It has a little kind of like, almost like a bump in there. And this one I'm going to just build out a little bit as well. I'm going to have to be very careful with this area to make sure that I'm carving enough. Right now it looks like that, but I might have to add more depth. Yeah, especially around here. I'll just bring this out like that. More depth in the lower one, because that's where I'm going to be growing the eyelashes. I'm going to be using this edge in here. So this top area, I'm probably going to have to make it a little thicker, and that should help with my subsurface scattering as well. Just going to bring everything a little bit closer in there, and then around here. Yeah, I went a little far in there. Let's see. And the thing that's interesting is that when you're sculpting like those eyelids, you have to make sure they have enough thickness. And the most important part is actually they have to look absolutely completely round, right? Like it's almost like they have to conform to the eyeball in a very, very smooth way. If you have like anything wobbly like this, for example, like up and down like that, right? I'm exaggerating, obviously. But this kind of stuff you have to avoid, you know, it's like it has to be a nice, smooth line going across, because, you know, it's like it's very easy to just look at something that looks a little lumpy, and you just like, it kind of breaks the illusion of something that can be real, you know. You're really trying to incorporate that tension that's happening between the eyeball pressing against the lid. And this is something that I normally do later, but I'm gonna do now actually, just to show you what I try to do, like with this area in general, when I'm sculpting, like to create a better connection between the eyeball and the eyelid. But the thing that's tricky is that it only works if you're working with a portrait, right? Because if you're moving stuff around, either you have like a very nice rig that can actually accommodate that. But the thing is, like, I'm going to be doing this stuff I'm going to do now in displacement. So it would be very tricky to, you know, to create some kind of rig to do that. But let me show you what I mean here. Just, so for example, around here, I'm still like in symmetry, right? I can get to the clay buildup, and then right against the eyeball, I'm gonna go underneath the you know, the eyelid in here, and I'm gonna use a low intensity. I'm gonna start building a little line like that. And then I'm gonna use this smooth. Let me go higher than this. Yes, even higher. Oh, it's because I have the regular smooth. I thought I had the the strong. Let's go back to the strong. So lightbox, brush stronger, okay. And then this one here, now I'm gonna have to go down, otherwise it gets too strong. Yeah, I can go a little stronger. Let's try 50. Yeah. So basically, like I'm gonna try to build, I'm gonna go even thinner. Let's see, just a little line like this. And obviously I'm just doing it now just to show you guys, but this is something I normally do later because I want to make sure that the eyeball is in the right spot. You know, for example, if I gonna pose her and I'm gonna make her look to a different direction, this is kind of not gonna make sense because I need to adjust it so they can, you know, it's like they can adapt to the corner, right? The corner is gonna be in a different spot. So, but now I'm just gonna show you, this is basically what I do for the inner, for the top and the lower eyelids, just to create that little thin surface in there. The thing is, like, because ZBrush can understand that I have like a different object underneath, which is the eye. Basically, like it's creating this little thing as a very thin thing that's actually taking into account the forms from the eyeball underneath. So basically, it's creating just like this little membrane, you know. And then this is very cool because when you scatter, if you're doing like a really close-up shots, like renders, you can actually see that little membrane, which is really cool. So let's build this one up a little taller. Just around here, you can go even taller. And let's just smooth it out. Do another little pass. Let's try it. Try it with the one single scoop. So this basically is going to become a tiny little detail in there, but it can be the difference between, you know, having the impression that something looks a little bit more real, just by having that more scattered right against the eyeball, you know. So yeah, so that's like the kind of stuff I normally do later. But you see, it adds a tiny little bit more of a little level of complexity in there. It's just like very slightly. And yeah, tiny little things like that sometimes make a big difference, you know. It's just a matter of like how you're going to be building the rest around it. So now I'm going to focus a little bit on the lips. Her lips, I can actually put on the side in here, so I'm not just like modeling without showing you the reference. Let's make it like that. And then let's bring this lady around here. I just want to look at the lips. And then again, different resolutions for 2 monitors. That's what you get, like snapping everywhere. Let's see. So her lips are interesting. I don't have a lot of resolution going on in here, right? It's hard to tell. I can use this lady here as kind of like a reference, like it's a different, you know, different type of lips and everything. You know, they are not that dry in here, right? I can use for some of those wrinkles, but not a lot of them. But in her case here, I think what she has that's interesting, you can tell that's a little bit dry, right? It's almost like the lips start getting a little bit deflated. So if I look like closely like that, I'm gonna definitely have to resculpt the top lips to make everything thinner. But if I look at the lips themselves around here, let's try to, you know, like with my clay build up, and I use intensity of 2, something like that. And then turn off my symmetry, and I can keep my square, you know, alpha for the clay buildup. What I'm seeing there, for example, like around here, she has this little, you know, almost like 2 little dots, if I can see correctly because it's so blurry, but it's almost like a little depression, you know, it's like that's what happens when you have like dry lips, right? So this kind of stuff here can actually help to create a little bit more of the impression of her lips a little bit drier. So just gonna carve and smooth very slightly like that. And make sure that when you sculpt it, the edges look a little bit more sharp, a little sharper. So it creates this little effect. You can even build a little bit around the edge, like that. And then we're gonna start building up some of the other forms in here. So for example, around here, she does have another one that looks like a little bit, almost like a dent, right? Like in a car. So if you're sculpting like dents for cars, in cars, like if you ever sculpted like panels with dents, you normally go like very sharp at the edges, you know, and even start like building up a little bit around it to create this kind of like dent. And that's kind of like the same principle here, other than the super sharp lines. This one is much more organic, definitely. And then here around the edge of it, I can actually build up a little bit more. And now I'm gonna switch from the alpha here, the square, to the round one, 35. And now I can start building up stuff. So let's do a little pass in here, a little bit more volume. And then remove a little bit of that. There's a little bridge in here. I talked those little bridges. So there's a little strong one right there. And then all of them, if you look around, they kind of like all have this like little puffiness goes around like that. And it's that's the thing that's interesting, right? Like when you sculpt like different characters, each one has a very different set of challenges, and everything changes, you know. It's like it's from the shader we were talking about to, you know, the way that the wrinkle's going to behave. And, you know, lips like this, for example, I don't remember sculpting anything exactly like that, just like some similar stuff, but it's always very interesting to me, like little challenge here and there. And then let's build around this one as well. And I have to remember too to incorporate some of those lines, but she doesn't have very strong ones. I'm gonna just build some of them right there. And then another one around here. I'm gonna add some more of that puffiness in there. Go around here. Doesn't need to be exact, but, you know, we're gonna try to get like the feel of it. If they're too strong, we can just like smooth a little bit. Maybe like this third one is not working, so I'm gonna just build a little bit around here. And it's such a delicate kind of surface, right? Like it's almost like the subsurface scattering here would have to be slightly different, but sometimes just the color itself, if you get the color correct, it does that for you, you know. It's like, it's almost like scatters. It's pretty amazing what Arnold does just with how simple the shader is, like for this subsurface scattering stuff. It's quite amazing what it does. This one is out of place, like this wrinkle here, so maybe I can redo it. And then let's just mark it around here. I'm gonna go for it later. And let's try to find some more stuff here. Another thing that I do, for example, like if I go right against the two lips, I can actually sometimes do what I did with the eyelid just now. You know, it's like just build a little bit of a blend between the two of them. Almost like creates a little bit of this you know, membrane almost. It's just because they're so thin and they're like kind of like stuck to each other. So if you go really against them like that, you can build up something that looks like they're kind of like almost like combining together, right? It's kind of like trying to build up both sides. So one is kind of like overlapping the other, and it's actually the collision, and there is causing this little micro bulge right at the edge. Tiny things, you know, tiny things that can actually help with the realism at the end. And then there are things you can do, you know, it's like there is a way to create like micro bubbles, for example, put those tiny bubbles of you know, saliva if you need to, depending on the character. Sometimes you want to go for that. I normally do that with the Z-Sketch. So you can use Z-Sketch and just like build up all those little bubbles and then just bake them into a geometry and then render. Just gonna go back in resolution a few times here just so I can smooth out this it went too far, so let's try that. Oh, now I messed up. Let's see. Let's try to use the inflating here. Very carefully. Intensity 1. There you go. Let's close that little gap a little more. Yeah, better. And then the overall feel for the lips is that her lips are much thinner at the top. So let's go a few resolutions down here. And I'm just gonna bring this. I can use the move topological here, I think. But before I touch it, let me just save it just in case, just because. Last time we tried to use that brush, it crashed, but I think it's because of I was touching a resolution that was much higher. And also because my computer was acting very unstable with different settings for the memory. And after I fixed it, I swear, guys, I didn't reset this computer, you know, just like keep going strong. It's been a week and a half, so far so good. So let's try that. Just because I said it's gonna crash right on my face right now. So I have the move topological. Oh, and it's working fine. So as long as you avoid like using the move topological at the highest level of HD, you're kind of fine, you know. So you see like this kind of answers your question. I'm changing things here, but you see how careful I'm doing, like try to pull things without, you know, it's like yanking too much, just like really being careful about it. And then I'm gonna keep doing this like for a long time. And this side here actually goes down a little bit deeper around here. So now we got a little thinner lips, and then this little guy in the middle is gonna get a little bit longer as well. So let's get a little cute little. There you go. And then let's keep working around here. So since I'm in this resolution, I'm gonna try to make those recos a little bit deeper as well. Because as I can tell you, my renders, you're not deep enough. So I'm gonna just pick one of them, probably like this one around here. They're not in the exact same position, but let's try to get this one a little bit deeper. So I'm gonna get there, cut it across a little bit. See how parallel she has, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, kind of like all kind of like parallel. So it's almost like I'm trying to avoid too much of that. But I definitely need to build up more of those forms into more volume for sure. Let's get the clay build up. Let's try to build this one up.
Hello, sir.
Hello, yes.
Yeah. Other day you showed one link, right, where a lot of Naga people were there. That link has this image high res actually.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's awesome. So I should be able to
send you.
Yeah, I mean, like if you have a higher resolution, that would be great because I'm just like imagining things right now.
Yes, I'll just do it.
Yeah, awesome. You sent like in the chat. Let's see.
I'll send you right away.
Is it? It's in the chat.
Yes, I will send.
Oh, okay. Let's go here to the chat. And right there. All right. Well, that would be very cool, man. So this is the high. Oh, yeah, that's awesome. Oh, look at that. Huh. So let's see if I can download from here. Sometimes you, oh, yeah, great. Awesome. Let's see, original, save. Man, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Oh, yeah, it's much better. She has even pieces of food in there, man. She just ate. Look at her.
Yes.
Oh, now I can see
it.
it. Now I can see this whole area here. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's cool. That's gonna be a much.
She is eating betel nut actually.
Yeah, I mean, like she has a lot of very subtle stuff in there that I can use now. Yeah, much better, man. Thank you so much. Gonna make the lips a little bit thicker as well. So let's see. X. And even like this side, I'm gonna start adding some asymmetry in here. It's gonna just buff this out a little bit. Let's see. There you go. A little bit more volume in there. Same for those guys, add more volume. It's so much better to see with the, but I tell you, man, like in the previous classes, I kind of like, I was almost like on purpose working with like lower resolution stuff so I could have like more freedom to just imagine things. But it's definitely much better when you have an actual reference. You can actually decipher some forms, you know, just even if it's just like for learning purposes, that's really great to really see what's going on in there. Yeah, this lip here is actually looks thicker in general, and definitely going to be a little bit, there's an angle, oops, going down here. And then this area here is such a tricky one as well because I don't understand exactly what's going on with the shadow in there, but it's almost like there's a shelf in here, but I don't believe it's an actual shelf. There's something tricky about the way that's displayed there. I'm just gonna remove some of it, although it looks very, very sharp in there, because I don't wanna make sure something that looks too fake, you know, without having access to the other angles as well. And then I'm just gonna build some of this volume in the front as well. Let's see, here, move from there. You should have like nice and round. And then from here, you're gonna just bring those guys, the corners, slightly in. This out. Go, this guy out. Slightly. Yeah, that's pretty cool that now I can see some of those forms right around the middle, which is really cool. Let's get this one. It's almost like that blend that I started doing, you know, it's like kind of like mixing the two together. It's almost like now it's kind of clear that she does have like this, you know, it's like I said, like very, very thin lips in there, thin surface. You're definitely going to get some of those, like both lips almost like blending together. It's a little hard to control right there. I might have to mask it actually. Yeah, it's affecting both sides, so I might have to mask. But I like this little corner in here. So she has a little bit of that one coming this way. And then there's another one coming from below right here. Those are kind of nice little pockets in there. Oh man, I'm painting with adding some color in there. I didn't realize. Let me just paint back with the color. There you go. Just see add. I don't know how I switched it. And then, but the thing is, like, this seems like the lip is actually much thinner. So that little line is actually this line here that should be already kind of like almost like going underneath the whole thing. We're gonna have to actually maybe bring the whole thing in a little bit. It's such an interesting exercise of deciphering these forms, but seems like her lips overall come in a little bit more than that. So I'm gonna go with still with move topological, go like a little bigger, and then let's try this whole thing in. Yeah, that way I can actually have access to something a little bit more similar. And then I can actually build some of the symmetry in here as well, just in case. And then let's go back to the clay build up. And now I can actually make this little line that I did before a little bit bigger. Something like that, and then carve it, starting from the top. Oh man, too strong. It's too strong. No, this one. Yeah, that's gonna be a really cool exercise, you know, it's like to really try to understand how those forms are happening in there. But there's a lot of cool stuff. And I mean, like, I could like really spend a long time just like trying to nail perfectly all of those forms. But I'm probably gonna, you know, like do some of them, the one that look more, the ones look more interesting to me, and then go on with it. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to get into that mode that's just like copying, and that's not as fun, you know, than creating something. But definitely a great reference to go on by, you know, it's like from now on, just like instead of like using that super crappy one, I can use something that's a little bit better. Okay, so for the lips, let's continue with the lips in here. So we have some of those forms incorporated. Now let's do, now that I can see a little bit more of those forms she has in there, let's start with digging some of those guys, the main ones. Let's see around here without the symmetry. So I'm gonna go on, another one around here, I'm gonna blur it. And then I'm gonna start doing it a little bit softer. Always like sculpting, blurry, you know, just make sure that they spread you know, enough so I have like a little bit of a fall off around it, and then I can actually just keep sculpting more on top of it, you know. You see like this one here, she has a little bit of on top of that one, a little bit of line as well. And I just sculpt that little line. You never know what it is, you know, if it's just like from being dry, or if it's part of like a, maybe it's some scar or whatever it is. A lot of stuff is just like, we have to try to decipher. I'm gonna turn on my stroke lazy mouse because it's off at this point. At least I can have a little bit more of a straighter line. The only thing I don't like is when ZBrush does that thing that crosses the whole model with the freaking line, you know, and then it gets really bad. But I'm gonna use this guy here to sculpt a bunch of things. Let's go into a lot of manual carving on top of those little pores in here, and try to come up with some lines that are going to start like echoing into those lines, and then basically like give you more direction, just like we started yesterday, but I'm going to go a little bit stronger with it. And in certain areas, it's almost like the pores kind of go away, right? So in areas like that, I can definitely use maybe like my clay build up, and then just use on top of it and just like let it erase some of those pores, just by building on top of the pores like that, on top of the highest resolution, because it really erases it, you know. It's like and then that's gonna give more room for the specular to hit those areas and look more shiny when you render. So you see, like just eliminating, first I added all those pores, but now selectively I'm gonna start like, you know, eliminating some of them to make sure that it works for the model. You never like being too precious about like, okay, if I did it, now I'm gonna erase. It was like, I don't care, you know, as long as it's at the service of the model. If it's gonna help, it's totally fine with me. But obviously, if you guys are not teaching, right? Like if I wasn't teaching here, I probably would not sculpt everything. I would probably like go and try like to go like little by little. But you know, I have to teach, and then in this case here, I don't mind just sculpting and show you guys the way that I approach, you know. But my intention was always like to create some of those models and use them as a base for the new model, so I didn't have to reinvent the wheel every time. But because of the classes, I have to reinvent the wheel every time, so I redo everything. If I wasn't teaching the class, I probably would be spitting a lot of more models because I would be totally cheating and reusing a lot of stuff I have. That's for sure. Let's see, lower intensity, and then just a little bit more broad. And then let's go with clay build up. It's an interesting forming here. See, like the way I have, like, it's a very sharp line at the edge in here. That's normally like an older, a younger person, you know, is like gonna have a little bit sharper. But in her case here, everything is kind of blending together. So we're gonna start doing that. So just get this area here to blend and eliminate and get a little bit more puffy right around the edge in there. Same for this side here. So everything's gonna blend together, a little bit more puffy. And I'm gonna go to a high resolution because as I do this, I wanna kind of like eliminate some of the detail on purpose, using the clay build up just to blend things together. Get rid of this very sharp little line. Still there, so let me just do both sides here at the same time. There you go, that looks better, not so sharp anymore.
Excuse me, Chris.
Yes.
Does it matter that your line for HD geometry is right in the middle of the chin?
Which one? What do you mean? Oh, this line here?
Yeah.
I'm not touching that part just yet. What happened here is that when I entered HD this time, I forgot to actually click my my polygroups. So we actually was based on like, ZBrush was trying to accommodate as many polygons as possible, but it's taking into account like the pocket inside of the mouth and the eyes as well. And those ones consume a lot of polygons, you know? So that's why I have my polygroup that anytime I just click like that. And then if I do this way, I can capture basically like the whole thing, including the neck. So yeah, that's basically what I did before, and I failed to click the right thing.
So you're not really set in what HD parameters you originally choose?
What do you mean?
So I kind of felt like when you originally choose your HD, that's kind of like the HD aspect of it, but you can kind of like move around the model and use HD.
Oh yeah, exactly. Because the thing about HD is that you cannot see the whole model in HD at once. I mean, like even with a computer like this with 128 gigs of RAM, ZBrush has a limit. It actually can display probably like between 30 and 40 million polygons, sometimes a little bit more than that. So this chunk here has 32 million polygons, right? But if I try to get, for example, if I get out of HD here, and I just like let instead of like me deciding what I wanted to go HD, which is in this case here, I just selected this polygroups, and I decided, okay, I want this to go HD. But if I let, oh, I clicked the preview here, sorry. So if I click, if I unhide everything, and I just click something around here in the shoulder, and I ask ZBrush to go HD for me, look what's gonna happen. So ZBrush decided that from that point up, it gave me close to 33 million polygons, and that's all I got in terms of HD. So now I can go HD and sculpt this entire area. And then in order to sculpt the rest, I have to actually get out of HD and then go back to that area, you know? But yeah, but the thing is, like, everything is HD. Once you subdivided HD, everything became HD, but you cannot have access at the same time, you know? You just go chunk by chunk, basically.
Oh, I got you. It's more like a spotlight.
Yes, pretty much.
Okay, I thought it was like the that gave you like the limit of what it could do.
Oh, what happened here?
Cool, very cool to know. Thank you.
Is this a display thing? What happened here? I hope I didn't mess up my model. No, I don't think so. The display went a little weird in there. Look at that. Yeah, it's just like a bug. Look at this. Weird, man. That's weird.
Just when you are turning the model, ZBrush take the lowest resolution in the viewport to have a quicker, more fluid.
Yeah, but check this out. Now I'm at the lowest, and I'm gonna just go up and look until here is fine, and then it starts like creating those extra lines in there. Now look at this. That's so weird. I don't know if it's like a material dependent. Let's see if I just go line, fill. Ah, yeah, it's weird. I was actually concerned that I actually subdivided once more with using a mask or something, but it's not. It's just like it's definitely a display problem. Look at this. It looks like it's subdivided, but it's actually not subdividing.
Isn't that the limit of the HD geometry you were using before?
Not sure, because right now I'm outside of HD.
Yeah, but it looks like the same, cylindrical area.
That's true. Yeah, it might be something that kind of like got baked in there. I don't know. That's weird. Let's try a different area here. Let's see if ZBrush does anything different. So now I have this one. Let's see. Let's go out of it. It's back to it, and that's amazing. Yeah, I don't know exactly what happened, but I don't think it's a problem.
Save your file.
Better use, yeah. Exactly, I was telling him.
What's that?
Save.
Oh, you save it.
That sounds like death.
It's like, is this? Yeah, it's starting to pile up. No, I think I had this in the past. It's like, and I realized, like, first I thought, it's like when you have like a mask and then you press Control-D by mistake, and then it kind of like subdivides locally, just locally, and then all of a sudden, like, you screw up the whole thing. But in this case here, I mean, like, everything is working if I go lower, so it's not like it's subdivided just a chunk. It's just like a display thing, and it doesn't show up like until the 3rd resolution level, and then it starts showing up. But you're right. I mean, like, it's exactly that projection that I did for that area, like from the side. And something I did in HD there kind of got baked in there temporarily, but I think it's going to go away, So one thing that I forgot to show is this. The reason why I'm actually using the poly grouping here is to get rid of areas like the inside of the mouth, like the pocket inside of the mouth. So for example, if I unhide this, right? And I look inside of the object in here, remember that these pockets that I have in there, they are all using a lot of polygons unnecessarily. Like, some people like to go HD without those pockets, so you save all those polygons. I rather have them to have everything watertight, but then what you can do before you go HD, you just hide them. So you hide like any of those pockets, like mouth, things like that. And then now even like this inner here, oops. Oh, that one, it's not going away. Weird. Let's try the opposite. Let's try to just unhide this. Yeah, and now I basically, like, I'm hiding everything, even like this, the inside of the ear. You see, like, there's some artifacts in there I have to clean up. But basically, like, I'm leaving everything behind and just using this mask here without the pockets. And that way, I know that I can use as many polygons as possible to go HD. So that's why I can get like straight away like 30-something million polygons. In the past, like, one of my students, he was like concerned because he was trying to go HD and he was getting just a tiny little piece. So for example, like just the cheeks like this with HD, and everything else was not HD. But then he realized that instead of like subdividing up to 70 million polygons, he clicked the subdivision one more time, and he was working with like a 280 million polygons in one model. And then if you have 80 million polygons, obviously if you try to go to a chunk in relation to the whole, the 30 million polygons is going to be just a little chunk, in relation to almost like 300 million. So be careful with that. Make sure you're in the ballpark of like 100 million polygons, a little bit less than that. Otherwise, you're definitely going to get in trouble if you subdivide too much. So let's go back to my old lady here. Let's put on the side right there. Yeah. She has a lot of interesting forms around the chin here, which I'm going to have to try to incorporate. But let's see. Let's try to go a little bit higher here. She has tiny little lines going side to side. So basically, like, I try to connect some of those little dots in there. And then instead of like going like in a very long line, you're gonna cut from time to time, just start a new one, kind of like parallel to that one. And then change direction a little bit. Just gonna incorporate some of those tiny little lines she has. And then they start kind of like around there. So kind of like start and then go change here and then around there again. And then there are a bunch of them going a little longer, then branching out. Same around here. So I'm gonna just like, from this point here, I'm gonna start breaking up a little bit and just like making them a little bit more separated. And then she has also some other ones that's starting to build vertically. This is gonna be like depending on the angle here. So now you can see it better. Just building some of those. And then from this point on, a lot of those are gonna start build up. Let's go to a resolution a little bit lower than this. Just like that. And then I'm gonna just make a little deeper cuts around here. And then you're gonna get some interesting ones going from all kinds of directions. So from here, you're gonna get one going this way, coming this way. And I'm gonna have like, as soon as I start marking them, I can keep in mind that I'm gonna have to inflate stuff around to create some more volume in there. Otherwise, like if it's just flat like that, it doesn't sell the idea that's kind of like a soft surface, you know. I'm gonna build some of those and start bringing things down like that. This one is gonna start going down further. Down there. And all this stuff needs to be deeper. There's like wrinkles coming from all directions now, like some are coming from the top like that and more like horizontally. And some are definitely more vertical as well. I'm gonna cut like some of them around here. That one I marked, that was in the wrong spot in here. Let's try to come up with this down here towards this line. They really need to look like they're kind of like breaking things up. And then even this guy here has to be much sharper and deeper. And so is this one here. Sharper and deeper. There's another one in here. And now we can start thinking about inflating them or building things up. So let's go like down maybe 1 or 2 subdivision levels with the clay build up. Just go right in between. Everything's more organic here. Even actually, it's add some depressions right in the middle to give that impression of that we gave in the lips. You know, it's like almost like there's some kind of like dry skin. So kind of like the forms build around the edges, and then a little bit more like a little bit more concave right in the middle of those forms. So some of them I can do that. And then slowly we start making things a little bit more organic. Here, there is another form that's interesting. It kind of like cuts towards it like that. Smooth it out. Let's get that going like this. And then more build up, oops. Up like that. So the thing is, like, at some point we're gonna have like this entire area covered with this kind of stuff. That's gonna take me a little bit of time. So this basically, like, I'm gonna try to just show like how I'm approaching this stuff here in this specific area. And then let's move to another area and then try to tackle that with some other different technique, you know, and then that way, if I cover all those types of skin I wanna do it, then during my free time, you know, it's like between tomorrow and then Saturday, then I can just go to town with this and get as much done as possible, you know, using this kind of stuff without boring you guys doing the same repetitive stuff. So that's why I'm gonna try to go to different areas today and incorporate different types of detail. Let's see. Let's try again. So going to the highest res again, now starting to look a little bit more interesting in there, but it's still a little too, there's a lot of pores still, but I want to clean them up a little bit. So I'm gonna do again, like with the clay build up right at the highest level, just make sure I squash them a little bit. I can even use like potentially just the smooth brush with a very, very tiny intensity, but at this point here, I'm just using the clay build up. And then around here, let's get some direction going on with this lines here. Let's, I can go even like symmetrically here. Let's see, just like since we are just building some of those guys. I'm trying to go like kind of like opening like a fan like that. Different direction, and then those guys here are going to start bringing towards the chin as well. Manually adding those micro wrinkles, you know. And when I do that, instead of like going in a perfect straight line, kind of like try to wobble a little bit, make it a little bit wavy, just to create an more interesting texture, you know. To, you know, try to prevent those pores to look always like very like orange peel, right? So a combination of like eliminating some of them altogether and some of them disguising with like some direction on the stuff, you know, for example, like around here, just like connect some of those little dots. And then we're gonna have the measure of it when you start rendering. And you're gonna see like, oh yeah, this can go much deeper than this. But unfortunately, ZBrush is hard to measure what's gonna happen until you really start rendering. I'm just gonna dig this line here a little deeper as well. And I'm gonna break it up. Instead of going like two straight lines, right? We're gonna just like break them up into multiple. So it gets a little bit more interesting. That line is very weird right there. It looks very sharp. So I'm gonna try to, you know, do some tweaking in there as well. So let's get that to look a little bit more, a little bit puffier. So let's just eliminate this form a little bit. Build up around here, and then this one is the one that needs to go down around there, and build up and kind of like blend the bottom here. Now there's always the possibility we can always use some inflate, as long as we're careful with it. I'm just gonna carve this line here. a little bit more. Starting from the corner.
Chris,
Yes.
should we increase the HD geometry limit from the performance?
Increase the what?
HD geometry limit.
Oh, the limit?
Yes.
Yeah, you mean like to how many polygons you can see at once?
Yes.
There is a setting here under, I think it's under memory, that says HD preview max polygons. And as soon as you start like playing with this slide, it's gonna do this. Like it's gonna give me a message as soon as I release it. So increasing the number of polygons to higher level, you know, may prevent ZBrush from successfully completing memory-intense operations. So yeah, I try to avoid. You know, it's like I would say you can try, but if it starts not saving or crashing for some reason, then you can, you know, go down. Let's try something here. Let's try to go back to the default. Let's save this model, and we can do a testing here. Let's try A, get out of here. So now I'm not HD anymore. So let's go save as. Let's see if it's gonna give us more polygons or not. Because at that point, when I just did that small area, like the face stuff, I got 32 million polygons. And then from the shoulder up, it got me 32 again. So let's see if we try from the shoulder again with a higher value here. So let's try preferences. Let's crank it to, let's try, not too high. So let's try 80. And then before you go further, let me just save this config, store config. And then let's just double check memory. So it's set to 80 now. So let's try from here up, see what happens. It didn't change much. It gave me like 33 million polygons.
Kind of strange.
Yeah. Maybe what they're referring to in that setting is maybe just the preview itself, because it says preview in here, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
maybe it's just like when you press A outside of the model, how many polygons it can accommodate. Let's see, it's doing previewing 70 million now. Preview complete. So I don't know, because I had the impression that it doesn't matter. Huh, it's actually not doing it, look. Oh, it did it. It just calculates all together. Okay, so let's see. That's interesting. Look, it's rendering the whole thing and then showing the result, right? So it's kind of like, it doesn't show anything during the progress of the rendering of the preview. I think that's the difference actually. Because if I switch back, let's see if it's gonna change or not. So if I have it 50 here. Now if I click, no, it's still doing that the same way. That's weird. Well, I don't see any difference in there. I remember like back in the day when they switched like from 32 bits to 64 bits, they mentioned that the ceiling would be just the amount of memory. You know, it's like you would be able to actually use the memory and just like max out everything just based on the amount of memory you have. But then you see like right now I'm sculpting this model, 32 million polygons, and my memory here says that I have like active memory 13 gigs, and I still have 94 free. So it's not using any of that, you know. So I wish they were using that. Anyway.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. That's interesting, right? Like doing this whole work here in HD, and I'm using just like 13 gigabytes. So apparently, like with a 32 gigabytes, you would be able to get away with. But obviously, if you don't have a lot of apps open or anything like that. But yeah, interesting. I always thought like at least like with some of the models I had open, I remember having something around I think it was like 48 gigs with maybe like maybe 2 or 3 models in HD. So maybe that's the difference. And then yeah, that way you need definitely like at least 32 gigabytes. Otherwise, it's not going to work. I'm going to do some work around here as well. So that side I kind of blocked. So I'm going to block around here with maybe with a lower resolution and lower intensity as well for the carve. So you're gonna get some of those forms a little bit more, a little bit deeper.
No, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, the model right now you're sculpting in HD or normal?
If it's what?
Right now, your model right now you're sculpting, right? Is it HD or normal?
Oh, this one here?
HD?
Yeah, this one here is it's inside of HD. You can tell by looking at this line here. So if you have like this weird line, if you can isolate like that, that's HD. But I'm actually at the lower res of the HD. It's like I went down in resolution in the HD. So basically, like you can see that if you go to Geometry HD here, you see have axis. Oh, actually here you cannot see it. But if I do this, like I'm gonna go D. So subdivide once, twice, 3 times, and then I go back to HD. But then under HD, you can still go back in resolution, you know. So it's pretty nice actually. You can do that because you can actually tweak your secondary forms at any time. Just gonna go around here, and then I'm gonna start bringing some of those little lines that she has from underneath. There's so many interesting details in her face, you know. That's why I thought this model was so cool. Like when I first saw her, I was like, oh man, that's the one. That's the one I want to model. Sometimes you kind of like, you know, you look at something and then you get kind of inspired. And like we were talking about the other day, and I was like, some people get inspired by like just pop art all the time, right? It has to be a superhero. It has to be this or that. But I get inspired by like regular people, you know. It's like there's a lot of very interesting regular people out there. Sculpturally speaking, right? Like sometimes you look for, you know, it's like even like people with the physical deformations or whatever, you know. And then you see those beautiful shapes, you know. It's just like it's unusual and all, but like sculpturally is a great exercise, you know. It's like I was thinking about actually doing a series that would be just like people with some disabilities, you know, just for the challenge of it, and just because it's an interesting type of beauty too, you know. It's interesting stuff.
I'm not sure I can pull up my model or not because my model also 82 years old is a lot of wrinkles.
Oh, really?
It's very challenging. I'm not very sure. I will try my best.
Yeah, I have this model. Let me see. Let's see if I can find it here. Just very quickly. Let's go to F and then press parts. You guys probably saw this one online, right? But yeah, this dude here, look at him. So that's kind of like sculpting her is like she has like way less of those wrinkles. So this is basically like the one I did, and I never finished the model actually. I have to go back and it's like slightly stylized. This is based on a painting actually. It's a painting by a painter called James Bama, and James Bama was amazing, man. And so yeah, when I saw that painting, it was like I got inspired to actually sculpt someone like that. And it's just this dude. He has like kind of like a Native American ancestry, I think. And it's probably like you can tell the guy's like old, and probably like a lot of like beat up skin from like working under the sun, maybe like on a farm, you know. So I kind of like I got fascinated by his face as well. So, but in her case, probably like it's gonna be a similar approach, you know, like in terms of the wrinkles. Not as deep, but yeah, it's like I love those different faces, you know. So cool, so cool. But I'm definitely like feeling a little slower in this class than the other classes. It's not gonna be anything that's gonna affect you guys because I'm trying to keep up with the program and everything. It's just on my own side, you know. It's like me producing my own thing. I'm a little bit slow, and I'm concerned. On your side, it's not going to affect because everything that I was teaching in the previous classes, I'm going to be able to. but I'm just afraid, you know, it's like I really want to kind of finish her up, like not all the way, but at least have something pretty much like, you know, finished in a way. So I have to speed up a little bit this weekend. I just like, I had a lot of different things going on at the same time. So I kind of like got a little bit, fell behind a little bit. But at the same time, in the past, people would just be like, oh man, I cannot keep up, you know, anymore. Like the first week is easy to keep up, but then the second and third, I start like speeding up a little bit too much. So at least like there's this advantage, you know, it's like at least you guys can keep up a little bit more this way if I'm going slower. But it's obviously always like a challenge for you guys because a lot of stuff I do, as you can tell, is very unusual. You know, it's like not something people normally do in production. You know, we try to be more technical, and I'm trying to be like a little bit more artistic, you know, with this approach. And then sometimes it's just like unusual, you know, it's like sculpting pores like this, and then people just you know, takes time to catch up. You know, it's like if you see work from my previous students, some of them started with a lot of trouble, and then they found out like the best way that works for them, and incorporated. Some of them incorporated a lot of those things that I teach. Some of them actually decided to replace like the porous part, which is the boring part, with texture XYZ, and still keep like the shaders and all the other stuff. You know, so it's just we don't have like assignments. I just want you guys to learn things. You know, it's like different approaches, just to have like an idea, and those classes are based on results, right? That's why I want to make sure that I finish the model, just to show that everything that I'm showing you guys, you know, it's like it produces results if you put everything in practice. You know, obviously if you just like, oh no, I don't know if I'm going to do that, you think too much about it, then you're definitely not going to get any results. But if you try it and then you find out like, yeah, that's not the best, the most optimal approach for me, and I'm going to try this other way, then it's like totally up to you guys, you know. But
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
Go ahead,
Go ahead,
Jeremy.
man. Okay, I just wanted to say, dude, I love this class, so don't worry about it, man. It's great.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, it's like as artists, we're always like self-confident, right? Like self-conscious, right? We just like
It's just, this is such good stuff, man. Like, just keep it up. It's just incredible.
Oh, thanks, man. That's nice to hear. Yeah, I was always concerned, you know, it's like if people are gonna get, because it's such a mix, you know. We have like people with a lot of experience, some people with less experience, and you never know that if you're gonna look like a hack in front of people, you know.
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
I was wondering, do you have any experience with any students that did some your work, in fact, in your workflow, but for real-time rendering, like in Unreal Engine or anything?
Yes, I think like if you go to the group, the Facebook group, there is like I believe like one or two guys who actually are trying to incorporate that to real time. You know, I saw some renders like that, and I asked like, "Is this real time?" I was like, "Yep," but I have no idea how they translate, for example, like XGen, for example, something like that, to a real time engine. I'm not sure
That
how it
would be
works.
hackers, I guess.
Yeah.
You never tried yourself to do your stuff in Unreal Engine? Or you
No,
plan anything?
never. I mean, like the only chance I had to do something like that was just recently. I did some work for XLab, and it's just like such a different approach, right? Like all the everything is very different from a pipeline for visual effects. And then I got a little bit like, man, I don't know if I can do this. You know, it's like I'm kind of like very fascinated with the super high resolution stuff, and then all of a sudden, you know, it's like I was having to make the models much lighter and then rely just on the normal maps. But I don't know, like I'm just curious about like things like the marmoset, you know, it's like things like that. Like it always very fascinating to me because it looks very powerful. I've seen some amazing stuff out there. Do you work with real time?
Yeah, I work in a video game studio.
Oh, cool,
with
man.
Simon here.
Yeah.
But we're like thinking like when we see all these high resolution detail and all that stuff, we were wondering like how can we like transfer this high resolution in baking, you know, because we're like limited with only one 4K map for the face.
That's right, dude. It was the same with me. Like
here, all those maps, you're like, whoa.
Yeah, that was the same with me. Like they wanted me to do like the whole body with one map, and then the clothes with another map. I was like, man, I don't know if I can do that. Man, I think like, you know, it's like I think I lost the window of working for games, to tell you the truth, because you know, it's like your energy levels go down as you get older. You don't know that because you're a young guy yet, still. But you know, it's like I say, like after you turn like close to 40, you know, it's like 35 to 40, the energy starts going down slightly, and then when you get like to 45, it really goes down pretty fast. But so kind of like that window I would have to actually get into like the game industry and be able to produce stuff faster, because you guys are crazy, dude. You create stuff super fast, and then I have friends like they do everything, right? Like they do like the model, the texturing. Sometimes they even help like with the rigging stuff. The guys at Pixar for visual effects, they do this as well. Like the riggers, they all modelers apparently. And so it's kind of interesting, man. Like I used to have like plenty of time and energy, you know, and I think that's where when I developed like most of the stuff I do is when I was like single, you know, it's like no family, and just like having plenty of time at night and a lot of energy. So I would just like stay and just like research and all this stuff. But nowadays I really try to research for what works for the current models that I'm working, like for example those portraits. Anything that's outside of those portraits, I kind of like don't feel like researching anymore, you know. It's like until I get interested in something else, and then I'm gonna go full on in that direction. But I mean, like before it was always scattered, you know. It's like I was just curious about everything, and then now it's a little bit more focused, I guess. But I cannot wait to see that. I cannot wait to see you trying it, you know. If you can try to incorporate some of this stuff with those maps. But then I'm just curious about like how you transfer all this stuff to a single map, right? Like the maps, I believe, they are 4Ks, right?
Yeah, it's 4K. It's one 4K for the head.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna try to bake and see what result we're gonna get. But I guess the best result will be with XYZ.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I need to try it.
Yeah, because I know that people, they use like a marmoset to bake, right? They get, for example, like a high resolution mesh from ZBrush. They decimate it and then bring to marmoset, and then they do like a bake based on the space. I think that's what I heard people doing. And but the thing is, like in terms of mathematically, you cannot incorporate all those details, right? Like I mean, we were talking about this the other day that we have an amount that's very limited of a theoretical 16 million polygons per 4K map. So if you have a head that has already like close to 80 million polygons, that means you're losing at least 65 million. And we are talking about 100% usage of the UDIM, which is not going to be even close to that. So you're probably going to lose a lot of the detail.
Well, I work actually with Arnaud in the game studio.
Yeah.
And your workflow gave me an idea, because I used to work as a technical artist before I switched, and I was really surprised of how the skin pores are regular in a way.
Yeah.
Because I was expected, you know, for some areas to have much more difference in size and such.
No.
And I can use a tileable texture for that. And use real-time shader to blend them and change a little offset and stuff. Like the only big problem is like poor directionality that you can't. Like I've seen a paper from Square Enix where they have like procedural skin pores. Which
that's awesome. Yeah, I remember seeing those. Yeah, it's a very cool paper.
I've tried something similar with but the problem was like with the smear map. When there's like the girl is explaining like, yeah, it's like a vector map but different, and it's hard to do, and she don't explain anything. And like looking over the world like, what the fuck is a smear map? What
I know.
are you talking about? Tell me, the woman, do not give me the secrets. But it could be like I would be tempted to do it. Maybe not on that model because I'm trying a likeness, but it's still a goal of me to do that in real time. It's inspiring the level of detail you put in your model, and then I would really love to have that.
Yeah, thanks, man. Another thing is that if the pores are still looking too regular, I'm doing something wrong, because at the end we're gonna have to have much more variation than this, you know. But yeah, some people ask me about like tiling and stuff. You know, it's like I wish like this surface noise in ZBrush was a little bit more powerful. You know, if we had the option, for example, I think that's something that's easy for them to incorporate, to tell you the truth. You know, let me just save this one. You can take a look at this. Because I don't know if you probably play with the surface noise, right? Like in ZBrush. It has this interesting thing. Let me show you.
Can't you feed a map that you were doing in that? Like make tileable one of your skin pore alphas, you know? The
yes, yes, you can, yeah. Yeah,
Isn't
I mean, like what I hope they did was something using just like, for example, like if I have my alpha like this, let's see if it's still there. No, it's not here anymore. So let's just get my pore. And let's just save this alpha here, export. And let's do just like for alpha. Ideally, I think what they could do is this, like under the surface, noise. So if you click this guy here, right, alpha on off, you can pick it. Now I have the pore in there. So let's see if we do something like this. So we have like the pore scale. And then let's see, alpha scale. Where is it? The strength. Oh, right here. So that's like it's bumpy. Let's see, mixed with noise. So let's remove that. Let's see why it's not showing just yet. What am I doing wrong here? Mix basic. Oh, okay, there you go. So that's the pore right there. It's just one right in the middle. That's the strength. Oh, relative. Let's turn that one off. Okay, relative. And then the scale, that's the noise. So the alpha scale is this one. Okay. So this one here, I wish they had a control. I'm going to have to do negative, right? Like this. I wish they had a control that could spread them and add rotation, for example. They could have like a rotation that would go like all over the place. And then, and also placement, you know, if they had a way to place them.
Do you know Substance Designer?
No, I don't use it.
Because I use that quite a lot, and it's definitely what I would use to do that.
Oh,
I'm definitely tempted to try that.
Yeah, man. If you can do a test, you know, that would be great, because if you have controls for rotation, for example, scale, and then placement, I mean, like if it's if you can display them in an array, but in a way that is actually, you know, it's like it's slightly random, that would be really cool.
Even bake that on a massive map. It's not. It doesn't matter, because it won't be the one used in the end. You know, I could make like a 8K map that tiles.
Yeah.
I've already tried the Substance Designer skin pores, and I got a problem because in Substance Designer you can't prevent one pattern when you randomize them to overlap one another. And in your pattern, you are extremely careful to make them connect to one another. And you know, you mentioned like the pillow pattern, and that's actually a problem. I literally had to buy a plugin for Substance Designer by a guy from Pixar. Make up an algorithm of scattering called Poisson scattering, just to solve that problem, but it doesn't solve everything. So man, this would be great. I mean, like if you, I have a friend too that Josh, he's one of the substance guys. I think like he teaches around the world, and I can ask him as well. You know, it's like how he would approach this, because it's a great idea. You know, it's like if you can get something to get like the basis of it, just like with, but it has to have like enough variation, right? Like for rotation, placement, and all this stuff. But I mean, like this would be a great step if they incorporated some of the stuff in ZBrush. I could, for example, like take a screenshot of this and then send it to Ofer and ask him, like, is it possible to add this for us? You know, it's like we need to create this result. So basically, like I can point to one of my models with a close-up of this area, for example, with the pores in the correct spot, and then point him to like, okay, this is what I can get right now with Noise Maker. Is it possible for you to add some more controls in there?
And the guy's a freaking genius, man. If you have the time, he can edit. Sometimes he adds in a day. He's a freak, man. I remember like having some trouble with some versions of ZBrush at ILM back in the day. And we contacted him. I was like, oh, we're having this trouble here, blah, blah. He was like, okay, hang in there. So like next day in the morning, first thing in the morning, he would send us a custom version of ZBrush with all the fixes already incorporated. And then he would say like, oh, can you guys test it? And he would test it and then test it for a couple of days and everything. And then if he worked out, he would just incorporate to the main branch, you know, as I can say, okay, thanks for helping us to fix it. And he would just move on with his life, you know. It's like, the guy is awesome. But as every single genius out there, he has his own agenda, right? Like he wants to do what he wants to do. So unless he gets really excited with something or something that's really being, you know, it's like damaging a production, for example, which is the case, you know, when you have a problem like that, then sometimes you just like tell stuff and he's like, yeah, he doesn't care. But then sometimes you think he doesn't care, but then he keeps that in the back of his mind. And then 3-4 years from now, you know, it's like you see a new release and the stuff that you asked him to add, it's actually there, you know. So it's kind of interesting. I remember like in a SIGGRAPH when I met Ofer like many years ago, I told him about, it was like, oh, you know, it's like you have this this thing you can do now with the Z spheres, right? Like back in the day, was like right when they were starting to talk about the Z spheres. And I said, like, it would be so cool if Z spheres could be like a brush, right? You could just like sketch like freely in the space, and that would just like create, for example, a tree. You could just like sketch a tree out of it. And I was like, oh yeah. He didn't even care, man. I see. It was like I met him, and it was like, and now you see like Z sketch is basically that, you know. It's like you can actually sketch one thing in real time in the environment. So you can tell that the guy he saves the stuff in his hard drive, and he just doesn't have the time to do it. But if I mention something like this, it might pop up in a few years, you know. Or maybe a few months or a few days. I don't know. Depends of how excited he is about it, because he's an artist, you know. If you guys follow Pixologic for a long time, like I do, since like 2000, 2001, something like that, Ofer, he was always the guy, the main artist behind Pixologic. Nowadays, we only know him by being the programmer and the owner of Pixologic, right? But back in the day, he was the guy producing like some inspiring work, you know. It's like he was trying to do like some fake subsurface scattering back in the day when we were just starting to talk about subsurface scattering. Always ZBrush, you know, it's like in creating some cool models as well, some monsters. And he's a very interesting guy, you know. It's like he's definitely an artist. And one of the misconceptions about Ofer is that some people when he started doing like all this ZBrush kind of thing, you see, like I'm talking to you guys and I'm actually tweaking my secondary forms. I'm not even in HD right now. But you know, it's like this misconception that Ofer doesn't know anything about you know, OpenGL programming or whatever. That's why he did this hack of a job with pixels and all this stuff. You know, I heard this discussion before, and it's quite the opposite. You know, it's like he knows, he was actually a programmer for Sega, and he has a very good understanding, I think, of the whole OpenGL and everything. So much so that if you remember, there was a plugin back in the day that was just for exporting normal maps. And that program was always, you know, the entire interface was inside of OpenGL, right? Which is basically now what you get when you go to, for example, like the Z wrapping here. He opens a different interface, imports the mesh in there, and then it's basically OpenGL. So that's what he had. But the thing is, like, in order to accommodate and be able to drive like a gazillion polygons like you do in ZBrush, you have to have some kind of other alternative, you know. It's like OpenGL would not do that. So this whole thing about creating a software that's like a 2.5D and basically like using pixels in the 3D space, like basically a pixel with a Z coordinate to it. It's kind of brilliant because, I mean, the amount of polygons this thing can handle is quite amazing. Like, it doesn't compare to anything else. So like it's you know, you have to give the guy credit. Like, it's pretty brilliant, you know. It's like now we're gonna have to see how things go. For example, as all the technologies start getting faster and faster, like the processors getting faster, those massive GPUs now, they're gonna come up with like much faster. So it's almost like at that point they're gonna have to start slowly abandoning this model and moving more towards like something that's more optimal for GPU, you know. Because at this point here, we're going to start seeing like some programs catching up. For example, I'm going to see like 3D code and all these other models, other softwares like Blender, all catching up in terms of amount of polygons going to be able to handle, just because of the improvements in the hardware, you know. And then all of a sudden they're going to fall behind if they are not smart about it. So I think they have that in mind. They're probably eyeing like maybe like VR at this point, you know. There's some interesting studies being done in terms of holograms. There's an article that came up the other day, was like people able to create like a hologram with the tactile, right? Tactiles, basically like a hologram you can actually feel and touch it. Back in the day, like in the 90s and beginning of the 2000s, they used to have those ugly gloves with little sensors in the glove, and that was the whole purpose. Like you would kind of like simulate that you were touching something. That was like for applications like NASA had something like that. But now the technology is getting so crazy. I mean, like we are living the future like for years now, right? You would watch like a Star Trek movie like two decades ago. It would be like a transparent monitor, right? Like, oh man, they're never gonna do that. And nowadays, like you see clips and clips of people using transparent monitors. You know, it's like there's this one that's basically like an aquarium. So there's like you can see the fishes and everything, and they turn on the TV, and basically like it becomes a TV right there. There's a transparent display. So like it's crazy, man. It's like the advancements, you know. Now those guys responsible for like creating this type of software in here, they have to be smart, because there's always like someone thinking about something cooler, and either you are not even aware, right? Like just the same as there is an artist right now, like probably like some kid working like isolated, and then all of a sudden he's going to post a crazy amazing model at some point. It's going to blow people away. I remember like back in the CG Talk times, that would happen, you know. It's like someone we never heard of, and it's just like a kid would just post some crazy you know, amazing piece of art. It's just like people are just trying things, you know. It's like getting excited with different things, and it's just cool to see how humanity progresses that way, and at the same time can be so shitty in some other aspects, you know. But yeah, it's amazing, man. We are living the future. We don't have flying cars yet, but I don't think it's because people have conditions to make profit that much at this point yet. But as soon as someone can see that as a huge amount of profit to be made, I'm pretty sure they're going to come up with the flying cars. They already like researching like lots of drones, right? Creating kind of like oversized drones as to replace like cabs, you know, like taxis and stuff. So, you know, anything can go at this point. Like technology, they have plenty. I think they basically like, yeah, sorry?
I didn't want to interrupt a minute ago, but when you were doing the noise surface,
yep.
Do you think it would work better with the like multiple pores that you were using? I've used noise surface before, and I used it with like scales for like a
yeah. What you can try to do basically like you know that in ZBrush you have a feature like to create the brushes that you can actually create like a repetition, right? So for example, like if you have a plane and you can sculpt one of those pores and create a repetition of that in the plane. So basically like you create like a repeat and of a pattern. So like let's say like you create like a little cluster in here. That cluster repeats in different areas. For example, like repeats like 8 times. So you can create like basically a seamless pattern with pores, let's say with 200 of them in there. And in that case, you can try that. Yeah, try like to
like go into like Photoshop and create like a seamless alpha.
Yep, exactly.
I noticed you were using the 3D, but like the UV aspect of it, like if you project onto the UVs instead of the 3D.
That causes lots of stretching sometimes, you know. It's like yeah, I tried that in the past, but I don't know. Like in this case, I don't even remember like how we import into the UV stuff, because I know
it doesn't. Sorry to interrupt, but it doesn't work with HD geometry.
With the
UVs, yeah, because I've done that as well with the skin pores, and I use like the array, like you were saying. But yeah, it doesn't work with the UVs. So
that's true. Because the HD geometry doesn't see UVs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So like my hack was I would paint a mask on like a specific view and then apply the surface and just keep rotating the model and then paint a mask in an area, then apply the surface noise.
Yeah. It makes sense. Yeah, that's the thing that's interesting, right? Like, for example, like it doesn't see any UVs or maps in HD. Basically, like everything becomes just like a pixel. So you can paint like poly paint. You can sculpt like the fine detail and everything. But if you go to HD and you try to see any UVs, for example, it's completely like gone. It's not there. It's bizarre. So yeah, that kind of like our theory about using the surface noise. That would be a second request. We'd have to see if Fotw can introduce that to preserve UVs during HD mode. That would be interesting.
But start making a list.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, if you saw my talk like during the summit in 2018, that's on YouTube actually. There is in many places in there I mentioned like it's like we should do something about the HD because I mean like it's such a great feature, but it's not just like it's underdeveloped at this point and blah blah blah. And this was like with the house packed, right? Like I was mentioning all this stuff. So right when I was exiting the building, Fotw called me in the corner and he said like, we can look at that. We can actually, this was like 2 years ago and I never got together with the guy, but he said like, we can look at that because when I programmed that was 32 bits and now it's 18 bits, 64 bits. And now I can actually do a lot more in terms of programming. I was like, we can actually expand a lot of stuff in there. So make a list, say what you need in terms of HD. And he said like, let's get together, like bring your wife, come to my house and we're going to have dinner together and discuss this. And this was like 2 years ago and I never went, man. I never contacted the guy again. But yeah, he lives like probably like 20 minutes from my house. He lives in Tiburon, like in a mansion in there. Man, like I remember like he gave me a ride when I went to the summit. And so he doesn't fly, he drives. Like he drives from LA all the way to, and to his house, from LA to his house. And the office is obviously at Numan, right? Like it's Pixelogic, so he has to drive to LA. But I remember like he gave me a ride after the event to the hotel, and his car, man, it was like a spaceship to this, I think it was a Mercedes. But I was like, man, this like high-tech car, like I was like, man, this is like super big and everything. Yeah, the guy, like he's living the life, man. And this deserved, it's like he puts a ton of work in this software. So I'm glad that his company is doing well, They're such good people, man. I mean, like if you guys ever contacted them, if you ever met, for example, Jaime Labelle, that guy is a rock star, man. Like he comes from a background of I think he used to design like purses and things like that for like Gucci, something like that. So he's also an artist. He's the general manager and everything, but he knows artists, and he really was the guy who actually brought more and more artists to try the software. It's like I remember he gave me a license back in the day when I got my first plug at ZBrush Central in 2002, I think. He gave me a license of ZBrush for free because he said like, oh, it's like you just keep creating, and it's like at that point they're just like trying to get more artists on board, and it was very cool. It's like every time I meet the guy, he's super nice, and it's like go to dinners and stuff together. It's like, yeah, it's awesome. I consider those guys really family, and there's like 2 people in the world that I know that we call me when they don't need anything. Like normally people call you or contact you when they need something, right? That's the normal. But 2 guys is Jaime, and then the other guy is Andrew Kars from Anatomy Tools. Sometimes they are like in a random place, like, oh, I'm at the airport and stuff. I was thinking about you, I was like, check this out, and then just send me a random link and stuff. I was like, those guys are real friends, Yeah, I really love those guys, man. Super nice people. They really deserve success, those guys.
Yeah, Andrew is genius even.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I really like his work style and all those things.
Andrew?
I had a dream, but I had a dream to go there and learn something from him and Richard McDonald because of financial issues. That's
yeah, man. Those guys definitely. Yeah, those are good reference to have.
Because in our time only few we have genius to meet. So I find it like that way.
Yeah, that's true. Andrew was a supervisor at ILM, and I didn't work with him at ILM. What I did, I met him in person, and then eventually he kind of got in touch, and then he saw some of my work online, and he invited me to be a teacher with him, just like to help with the ZBrush part. And then we got really close friends, man. We became close friends, and then he invited me to do this another 3 or 4 times. So I did like the class with him like 3 or 4 times, but I was always overwhelmed because like my anatomy knowledge in terms of like muscles and muscle groups and everything, you know, it's like landmarks. It's not even close to what the guy knows. So I always felt like a little hack, you know. I was like trying to help out, and I was basically like I was helping with whatever I knew. But he was the guy really driving the whole thing, man. He's really exceptional. Like he knows a lot.
Yes, very true. Very, very true.
Yeah, it's like a good people, man. You cannot, you know, it's like he's the kind of friend that you know. It's like I have this philosophy that I'm kind of like I hold grudges, right? I'm such a grump, man. I hold grudges, and then over time, I kind of like, you know, it's like I don't need to be at peace with everybody. Like we have like 8 million people, 8 billion people in the world, so I don't need to, you know, to be friends with everybody. But I mean, like from time to time, you meet people who are actually exceptional people. You know, it's like and you really want to make sure that you're in touch with them, not because you need anything from them. It's just because you enjoy the energy, you know. And that's how I feel about these people. You know, it's like I don't need anything from them. If they offer something like, oh, cool, yeah, I can try to help you. You know, but overall, it's just like I just enjoy being friends with people because they are cool people, you know, not for interest. I don't like that part. I'm kind of like a hermit, you know. It's like I by myself most of the time anyway. But if I have to hang out with someone, I want to make sure people are nice people. I would love to have, for example, a reunion with the people from this class. You know, it's like in the previous classes as well. Because I made a lot of good friends, you know. It's like people in general are very super nice and very talented artists. You know, it would be nice to actually eventually, like after this whole crisis is over, if you guys come, for example, like to the ZBrush Summit, you know, I'm probably gonna be there. It would be nice to hang out. Like most of the ZBrush artists hang out. It would be nice, you know. It's like maybe you can make that happen eventually.
I don't know how many of artists that have taken your class are in the Bay Area, but we get like a Bay Area meetup.
That's true, man. We can do that. I mean, like you guys could come to ILM at some point, you know. Let's have lunch together, do a tour with you guys in there.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, and even if you guys are not here, if you're coming to visit San Francisco, let me know at any point. I mean, like people who I don't know, you know, it's like some Brazilian people, you know, it's like I don't know in person. It's like, oh, I'm coming to San Francisco. Can you give me a tour? It's like, sure, just show up, you know. And it's normally like Fridays. If you guys show up on a Friday, just like let me know, like probably like 2 days before you come. I can definitely set up like a, you know, it's like a tour, and just go have lunch, have a tour, probably like take about 2 hours total, and I go back to work, and that's it.
That would be
awesome.
Yeah, guys, anytime, man. This is easy to make happen. Not now with everybody working from home, but yeah, after this whole craziness is over, we can definitely do something like that. I'm gonna do a little pass here with the inflate. I'm gonna go very, very low intensity. I'm gonna do like a 1. Let's see. 1 and then inflate. Being very careful because of that problem I mentioned yesterday. I even gonna go inside here, gonna double check. But the inflate always gives this nice little organic pinch, right? Like around those forms. And if you do carefully enough, you definitely can get more, a little bit more organic feel for sure. Even around here, I can actually close that, make it a little bit sharper. But I'm gonna double check from the inside first. Make sure I'm not destroying everything. All right, let's go see the damage. See if I do it carefully. Look, in the lips, and there I got some pores in the lips. So like just a little bit around here, that shouldn't be a big giant problem to tell you the truth. But I, you know, I can, for example, use a low intensity for my smooth here. like 2. Let's try to get some of those guys just a little bit smoother, just in case. But those ones shouldn't be a big problem. The big problem is when you have like really stuff like mangled, you know, it's like really interpenetrating in there. But this one should be fine. Got a nice little crease line in there. And then, yeah, and at this point here, you can do that thing that I showed you guys yesterday. You know, it's like to sculpt from the inside. If you want to make sure you get like very sharp detail, instead of like carving negative, you're going to carve like a positive. Just like add some wrinkles right here. Get a little bit stronger. And even those guys here can reinforce. And I'm not even at the highest resolution at this point, right? Just like, let's go see, for example, like from the outside, how these things look like. Let's just add some of them in there. So around this area here, let's see what we have. Yeah, look at that. So everything carved without any crazy penetrations happening there, but yeah, that part here. I'm happier now with the way that this thing is flowing. Before it was a little wacky, but yeah, it's starting to feel a little bit more organic now. Sometimes it takes a little time, like researching it. You know, like I said before, like those artists who do caricatures, I love that kind of stuff. I used to do caricatures in the past. It's like so hard, and I mean, like not professionally, obviously, just as a kid. But one thing that I see those guys doing, like if they get like a new reference, like someone they have to make the caricature, and they have no experience with that, they have to actually do a bunch of them to actually discover what are the main, you know, it's like parts that they can actually exaggerate. So they get to know that person so well after doing like several different drawings that at some point they recognize that person, and they don't even need the reference anymore. They now know how to draw that person, right? And when you're doing a portrait like this, not very different, you know. It's like it's kind of like you're seeing this person for the first time, and then you're seeing this person under different lighting situations, and then you think at first like, oh, that's gonna be fine. I'm gonna be able to nail it, right? And then after a couple of tries, you realize, man, that's not as easy as I thought, you know. It's like, and then the frustration comes in because you're just like, man, I thought it would be easier, but it's not. Like likeness is never easy. There are some freaks out there that you see like really like in like an hour getting a likeness really close, you know. I'm not that person. I keep working for days, you know. It's like it's kind of like brute force, go back and forth, observe, you know. It's like go from a distance, see if my primary forms are in place. If the proportion is not correct, correct them, go back close, work in the secondary forms like those ones, go closer, work in the tertiary, go further again, check with the how everything is playing together. Like, okay, so I have my primary and I have my tertiary forms like the pores and everything, but what about the secondary, right? Sometimes it's missing. Then that's when I'm gonna have to go and build those larger wrinkles and those larger forms. So basically, like it's like seeing the wall of China from the moon, right? Like you should be able to see it, you know. It's like if you have the detail in there, you should be able to see it when you look from a distance. So everything is a fractal, right? Like you have to be able to create this hierarchy of form that you need to be able to identify primary, secondary, and tertiary forms from a distance, right? If you're not seeing it, then it's probably like things are not in place just yet. That you're probably going to have to build. Normally, the main problem is lack of secondary forms. Sometimes people get very comfortable with the primary, and they go straight to the pores and the fine wrinkles, and they forget to use, like, you know, those forms we are building before here. For example, like around the bags in here, I can actually build up some more stuff here now that makes things a little bit more interesting when you look from a distance. Instead of like having a single form, you're going to break into 2, 3 different forms now. And when you look from a distance, you're like, okay, now I can start seeing that form happening there, you know. And that's going to be across the board. Like for major forms like this wrinkle in here, you're going to have to build around it. And then I'm going to have to introduce a little bit more of a sharpness and a pinch inside of it, you know. And then eventually you're going to get everything to play together. It's kind of like an orchestra, right? It has to look, everything has to be in tune. Otherwise, it really doesn't work. And one thing that's very important, we're going to be doing probably most of the corrective work I'm going to be doing during our reviews this weekend. I promise you guys it's going to be about the shape of the cranium. Because that's normally the recurrent one. You know, it's like getting the shape of the cranium correct. Sometimes it gets a little bit too, let me show you here, get out of it. So sometimes you don't have enough volume in the back. So sometimes like it's very like, kind of like this, right? Sometimes like much worse than this. Let me get, yeah, you get like something like that, right? and then sometimes it's too much. Sometimes you don't have enough of this egg shape. Like here, it looks a little square in my case. I just got busted by myself. Shame on me. So basically, like, it needs a little bit more of an egg shape, you know. It's like so it starts a little bit bigger in the back, and then towards the front, towards the temporalis in here, it gets thinner and thinner. Maybe this area here, in my case, is still a little bit too inflated. So I'm gonna just bring it down a little bit. But this line here, I can see that it's going like, you see like, it's like wider in the back, and then a little bit starts getting a little bit thinner and thinner. In my case, I think I have a little bit too much volume around here, but the back looks about right. So yeah, this is the kind of stuff like a lot of people get in trouble, you know, it's like how much volume you put in the back, or like from the profile, for example, like the shape is going to be, you know, it's like sometimes it's going to get weird. Like this one, I kind of like made it a little weirder on purpose. But I mean, like if I want to start correcting, I'm probably going to bring this down a little bit, right? And getting things a little bit more natural. But the shape of the cranium is like, it's such an important thing because it's the frame of the whole face, right? Sometimes you get the ears in the wrong spot. For example, they are too deep, right? Or they're like too open. I'm just exaggerating, obviously, just to show you. But I mean, like it changes everything, right? The frame of the face changes. This relationship in here as well, like with the masseter in here and the jaw. So for example, if she's too open like that, right? It gets a little weird as well. Sometimes you don't have enough. So basically like you're gonna get like this mask in here with all the volume, and then you look from the side and this doesn't have volume enough. But obviously, like you're gonna find people out there that has like, they have like all kinds of different faces, don't have enough volume in the maxilla. Sometimes people have like an underbite that's pretty big like that. You're gonna find people in real life like that, right? Like this little chin like that. Sometimes you're gonna find someone like Jay Leno, right? Look at that giant. So yeah, it's like there are all kinds of variations out there, but it's important at least like to get some average cranium size. Just because most of the time the reference you're sculpting from, they are actually from people with hair. And then we kind of like, okay, I don't know exactly what's in there. So I'm just going to do like, you know, it's like do anything with that and just fill up with the hair. So for example, I can do like a tiny little head and just like fill up the whole thing with the hair. And that's not the right approach, you know. It's like the right approach is to actually try to build something that can be like a good support for the hair. And then from that point on, just start sculpting on top. And then eventually, if you need to remove some of that volume, you can do that. But it's better to have the volume closer to the volume you see in the references, you know, at first for sure. But yeah, guys, I'm gonna keep going with my old lady here. And I know you have either old ladies in there or young ladies or guys or monsters, whatever you want to do. And let's just have some fun. Tonight, I'm gonna write down the email to send to you guys. So that's going to have like the link to the Zoom meeting and all the instructions on how to upload stuff. Like it's going to be a Google Drive. You're just going to give access. You guys create a folder with your name in there and just drop whatever you need. I'm going to tell you, like in the past, sometimes people would add super large models, and it would take a long time to download, you know. So I would say, like, if you guys are working in HD geometry, let me show you like a little trick here. If you're working in HD geometry, try to send me, for example, if you just want me to check like the pore detail or something like that, send me like screenshots. Just say like JPEG or PNGs. Now, if you want me to check like proportions and like the structure of the model, then save like let's say like it can be like a higher resolution OBJ, for example, or a ZTL, as long as the ZTL is like it has no HD, because the HD is gonna create like those gigantic files. And then a trick, for example, if you're working HD, for example, my model is HD right now. You can just click, for example, duplicate, and now we can delete the top one, which is the HD. And this one is the same model without HD. So basically, like if you can do that, that can be very helpful as well. Because I want to make sure I can download everything. You know, sometimes it takes hours to download when it's just like, you know, Google Drive is not the best, unfortunately. So yeah, I'm gonna send that in the instructions, and then I see you guys on Saturday. You know, it's like, and then you pick. Obviously, you just show up. It's gonna be either in the morning or at night for me here. But most people show up in the morning, and then just get a feel, you know, because sometimes you're gonna get here in the morning, and then you're gonna see like there's like 10 people in line, right, already in there, and then you can kind of like make a, you know, calculate a little bit, and realize that at least 10 to 15 minutes gonna be spent per person, right? So if you have 10 in front of you, it's probably like 100 minutes right there at least, right? Like, so more than that probably. So it's almost like,
Chris?
Yeah. Hello. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. Are the feedback sessions recorded?
Yeah, they're all recorded. Yep.
Okay.
Oh, and by the way, if you guys cannot make it for whatever reason, as long as your models or files, whatever you have, are inside of those folders at the Google Drive, I'm going to review anyway. So probably not in the morning, because in the morning I'm going to be doing like whoever is present to ask me questions directly. My English today is a mess. And then, but the other stuff, for example, whoever could not make in the morning, I'm going to review at night and going to record everything. Both sessions are recorded, and you guys going to have access to everything. Actually, people liked watching like other people getting reviewed. Like I remember like when I had this marathon that I spent like 6 hours reviews in the morning on Saturday. Some people were like there the whole time with me, man. And I was like, man, why didn't you go? It's like, no, actually, I'm enjoying like watching the reviews like for other people as well. So it's a matter of like, you know, what do you want to do? But I would say like, if you come here and you see like there's a bunch of people in front of you, maybe you can just take a break, you know, go do something useful and then come back.
Chris?
Yeah.
What do you expect? What do you prefer to review? Because, for example, I'm doing a likeness, and I haven't been doing any HD geometry. I have set up the mesh and the UDIMs and such, but
yeah,
because I feel like I shouldn't go further as long as I haven't nailed that. Would that be okay with you, or should I do a little bit of pour so you can judge that as well, or what will be more relevant?
Not at all, man. Like whatever you're doing, like at your own rhythm, you know, it's like if you have like if you're focusing on the primary, secondary now because you want to make sure that they are correct, I have no problem reviewing just this part, you know. In that case, you can send me like the reference you're using, like especially like multiple angles, like a profile, 3/4 and front for the most part, if you have those. Or whatever you have, you know, and then a model. It can be like an OBJ with a slightly higher res, or like a ZTL without any HD, you know. And then I can review, like basically like I'm going to sculpt in front of you guys, kind of like try to change things and try to help with the likeness or whatever it is, based on the reference you're using, you know. Just try to, again, like sometimes I get like some good improvements. Sometimes I fall a little short because, again, I'm seeing that model for the first time, and you're just like trying to wing it in about 10, 15 minutes. It's kind of hard, but I'm going to try my best to actually help you guys with it's just like basically like you were borrowing a new set of eyes. That's all it is.
Can I do you use PureRef?
Yes, you can do PureRef. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. I still don't use on my own here, but my students, they normally send stuff in PureRef. PureRef is pretty cool, actually. I have to start using more. All right, guys. Thank you so much, and I see you very soon. Please keep safe in there and keep producing. You know, that's what moves us, producing and you know, seeing cool shit out there and getting inspired.
And you do.
See you guys. Bye.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for helping with the recording, man. That would be a disaster. Yeah, that was, you saved me. Yeah. Thank you. Cool. Cheers.
It's for us.
Thanks.